So sorry for all of the technical issues. Thank you for bearing with us.
Recording
ready soon.
Oh, Ashleen, awesome.
Awesome. We'll give it just another minute while everyone joins back in. Thank you guys for bearing with us.
All right, excellent. I see everyone back here. Thank you very much, everyone, for your patience and jumping over. Is the Int Elligence group ready to go? Are you here and ready to go?
Yes, we
are.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Excellent. I will go on mute and the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. And I'll be sharing my slides right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Intelligence team. To introduce ourselves, we first have Ariba. Could you introduce yourself? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Ariba. I am an incoming freshman at MIT, and I'm considered the audio arithmetic of this group.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah. I'm considered the integrator innovator, and I'm an incoming freshman at the University of Pennsylvania.
Hello, I'm Aaron. I worked on the video, and I'm a rising senior at Lynbrook High School. Next.
Hi, I'm Jenny. I'm a UC Irvine student, and I work on the webpage of this project.
And so you might be wondering, well, who are these group of students? Well, we're not just any group of students. First of all, we are a tried and true team. We have an extensive background in tech as well as startups. So we have both of the understanding on the technical side and the product development and growth side. Next, we are students. And when we say this, it's really important because as we get into our actual presentation, you'll see how being students provides us with a unique competitive advantage over a lot of other competitors in our field with unique insights to virtual learning. And lastly, we are the real lives behind the statistics. We say this because when we have been doing our research and reading extensive academic papers and actually exploring all of that there is to this field, we realize that we are not just numbers, but we are the narratives, and we hope to bring that to this field. Ultimately, we know what works and what doesn't in the field of education, especially with ed tech. We accept reality with all of its challenges, and we build intelligence from there.
As students, we've all had that moment in life where we've sat in the classroom utterly lost, but the instructor fails to notice our confusion, and the next thing you know, you're failing the next exam. Despite how universal this common problem is, there's virtually no effective or sophisticated early detection, intervention, and feedback softwares that help teachers detect common classroom negative emotions, namely confusion, engagement, and boredom.
With the current problems of online learning due to social distancing and quarantine, virtual classrooms have become more prominent and the need for a solution more imminent. Our solution toward these problems that occur due to virtual learning is directed towards teachers in order to gauge the important metrics regarding their students' engagements. However, this will not only make a teacher's job more easier, but it will most importantly enhance a student's educational learning experience.
Ultimately, in our research and from collecting extensive surveys from educators around the globe, we found that this one line was extremely pertinent to our cause. It's that students are not engaging enough. They're logging out mentally while they are logged in technically. And to elaborate on this, You might be asking, well, why is something as engagement so important, especially in the educational landscape? Well, across nearly every single category of education, whether that's in the sciences or the humanities, it has become ever more apparent that it is through engagement as the leading indicator of academic performance that is ultimately leading immense results in the field of education. So for example, this is a study, a 2019 study presented by the Gallup organization, and it shows how the top quartile of those performing in an academic sense across all of these various academic criteria are the ones who are most engaged. So they're at least 50 to 60% engaged for the most of the time. And this is just for the citations to the previous one.
Okay, so we're taking like a multimodal approach. So we for the product, we combine the video and the audio to give like a more accurate result. And
our product is also multi-directional. It provides not only aggregated, but also individualized data graphs. This way we provide to businesses a seamless startup, all in one. We cover both aspects.
And it's multi-personal. It's about the teacher and the students. And it's mainly important for everyone to stay engaged, including the teacher and the students.
But enough about talking about intelligence and what we do. Now it's time to get straight into our demo.
so we have it pre-recorded. And this is like the web page. So we have different steps written here so that like users can like follow the steps and try out the demo. So this one is like we are doing face detection, and we're also entering the URL for the pre-recorded video. So now we can see the video here. And now we are starting the detection. Yeah, so this one can analyze multi people together, and we show like both the individual data and the aggregated data.
And that was for our video portion. Now Ariba is going to be introducing us to what really makes us unique though, in addition to being multimodal, multi-directional, and multi-personal.
So although we haven't had the chance to integrate the audio portion into our website, it is very integral to, we have created the software behind determining disengagement, or in this case, engagement in terms of audio. So I'm just going to show you a demo of how exactly the software and the metrics work. So first, the idea is you log into a website, just like the video, and you upload the audio recording of the Zoom recorded meeting, and then you upload it. And like previously, you get a graph giving you a disengagement count. So I'm sorry, that graph was a little short, but basically this disengagement count is from 0 to 4, 4 being very disengaged, 0 being extreme, not disengaged at all. And through various metrics such as words, the user's words per minute, the verbal pause length, the verbal pause frequency, how disfluent their speech was, we aggregate all those different separate metrics and come up with a 0 to 4 count on how disengaged we are, to make it easier for the teacher to understand in a fluent way whether their student was disengaged or not. And we also provide the individualized metrics if the teacher wants to see exactly how many words were said by the student, exactly how fast they were speaking, exactly how disfluent they were in terms of how many disfluent words they said in the total amount of words that they said in throughout the meeting.
Okay, so for this part, we kind of want to go more into the technical side and explain how this website is made. So for the work part. It is made by React.js. And it first, as you can see with like the picture, it sends like the picture through a web request to the Python backend to receive boundary rectangles of each face of the screen so that we can like analyze their emotion. And then we assign like each emotion detector to each person. And we can do it like the analyze through the Effectiveas Java SDK. And the data is shown using the Plotly API.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in here. We also made custom metrics using the audio side and the SDK FECS, which are the smaller facial actions such as lip corner depressor. And using these smaller metrics, we used it to detect confusion, which has not been done previously with the Effectiva SDK. In order to do multifacial analysis, we also had to detect the faces using an OpenCV detector in Python, since we were told that the SDK that we were provided only worked on one face at a time. So in Python, we used OpenCV to convert an image to grayscale, and then use the hard cascade frontal face detector to find the bounding rectangles, which we then returned to the web page.
And for the audio section, what we essentially did was we used a speech recognizer to turn what was being said into text. And then we gathered certain metrics such as verbal pauses, the length of a verbal pause. So for example, how long a speaker paused, how often a speaker paused, and how disfluent, meaning like, did they say a lot? Did they say like a lot? Did they correct themselves a lot? And then we use these metrics and we compare it to a baseline based on research that's been done on what an average student should speak like, what an average student should be breathing like, essentially. And with that baseline, we compared, does what our audio recording analyzed compared to what the baseline should be? If not, then we can tell that they are disengaged based on a range of 0 to 4.
And to give the big picture overview, we the intelligence team saw a struggle in education. We saw that not only were students struggling to adapt to COVID-19 and how that has forced all of us into virtual learning and nearly virtually being into Zoom sessions for the majority of our educational experiences, but also that teachers were struggling to find new ways to address and to respond. And so what we are doing through intelligence and through our software that we hope to one day become an integrated Zoom plugin is to fundamentally deliver the insights needed so that teachers and students can more effectively work not only in the context of COVID-19, but as technology develops and we're increasingly working from at home more often. And so that's what intelligence is. We provide a solution to a struggle that has existed beyond COVID-19 and probably will exist for some time. So to talk more about intelligence in action and our plans moving forward. Throughout this process, we spent a lot of time really working and hustling on product to integrate new novel features, whether across measuring different emotions such as confusion, or looking at different ways in which audio could be incorporated to measuring things such as engagement. But now moving forward, our plans are more focused on that startup aspect that we mentioned earlier. And so this includes really focusing on a B2B model, so a business to business model. And the reason why we hope to do this is because traditionally today, many schools implement a system where they partner with organizations such as Google and G Suite in order to, secure a large percentage of additional subscription services for in-class teaching. And so what we hope to do is to ultimately provide a subscription service of intelligence for educators and schools across the globe. Ultimately, we know that EdTech is a $252 billion industry, and there's just so much innovation that needs to happen, and we hope to lead and spearhead these efforts.
Will you join us as we launch the future of classroom with intelligence to another dimension and beyond? Because don't worry, our motto is to leave no student behind. Thank you. That's it. Any questions?
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. Wonderful work. Thank you. I will actually take the opportunity to ask a question. So have you thought about any concerns around data privacy, especially when it comes down to children and young children? Parents are very worried about data being captured and possibly data being shared to school systems where maybe that will influence decisions that are made for the students' future. So have you given thought to how you position this in the context of data privacy?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. Thank you so much for raising that. And our team has thought extensively about this, especially since data is just such an important topic. And the first thing that we thought of initially, just to lay the foundations, that in the educational environment, traditionally teachers today do ask for a photo release video form from their students. That's step one, right? Teachers would already have to establish that sort of privacy and sort of that respect their own data and video and audio usage. The next part really comes down to one of this cool integrated features we have on our website, and that is that teachers have the option to use both aggregated and or individualized data. And maybe Aaron could talk more about this, but basically he's going to be going further into sort of why this aggregated model is really important and how that can help to protect data.
Yeah, for sure. In the future, we want to make it like toggleable so that we can either provide aggregated data or individualized data, such that if we do actually make it into a Zoom plugin, we'll have direct access to the to the video streams, as Atlassian did with the Zoom SDK. We did not directly find out that Zoom could do that, so we went with a post-recording method, as the Activa team suggested. But in the future, if we connected it to Zoom, perhaps we could use the video streams to intercept it and then allow students to contribute to the aggregated data without directly revealing their own individualized data. But the reason that students may want to reveal their own data is so that educators have the opportunity to really see which students are struggling so that they can provide a more customized educational experience. So there's benefits to both sides, which is why having individualized data is also a feature of ours rather than only doing aggregated data.
Excellent. Thank you for your answer. Over to my fellow judges. Matt, Alex, any questions from you? And you might be on mute.
Sure. So I've got a question. It's Alex here. So when trying to promote this idea with investors, what do you think the sort of most tangible benefit that this brings would be? How would you summarize the sort of the value of this in a nutshell, if put on the spot?
Yeah, that brings up a really good question. And in one line, intelligence software allows teachers to fundamentally change the way that they operate their classrooms. Now it's finally going to be focused on engagement rather than just hypotheses and guesses. And so I guess to sell that in terms of an investing side, it really would be about framing this as sort of the software that is going to be pivotal in education and ed tech. And right now we're, we would, if we were to start, fundraising, we'd probably still be in our pre-seed round. And so there wouldn't be too much of an initial funding round evaluation, of course, but we do have this really promising effort and initiative that we have already started and began. We recently partnered with the COVID-19 organization. So it's a global 501c3 nonprofit. And what they're doing is they already have over 10,000 students that they teach on a monthly basis. And it's pretty incredible. And the reason why we partnered with them is so that we could see our actual software in action. And so just the other day, our team and I launched onto a Zoom call with a couple of the founders of the COVID-19 project, as well as some of their own students. And from this, we got the application that like, wow, people found our software incredibly cool and it's super easy to use. And then on top of that, we know that by partnering with existing organizations and really showing them why intelligence is so important, that is something that investors are most likely going to really enjoy hearing from us.
Very clear, thank you.
I would just like to add on that, like, I feel like some people have concerns that eventually quarantine is going to end. Like, we're not going to always be in quarantine. We're going to eventually return to in-person classrooms. But the idea of online learning never ends. And I feel like the progression of quarantine and the progression of Zoom as a teaching method will allow educators and educational institutions to see the benefits of online learning. And that will lead to a steady progression in the use of online learning as an alternative, as an addition, or even as the main focus of education.
Yeah, just to sort of bounce off, sorry, just a quick add into that. We even see with, for example, LinkedIn Learning or Udemy, all these various forms of learning are now happening online as opposed to being restricted to like high school or elementary school.
Excellent, thank you. Matt, any question for you?
Yeah, I have two, depending on how much time we have.
Sorry, we're actually just out of time.
All right, let me get one out there, please.
Oh, sorry, we have to be fair, Matt. We have to be fair in our time allocation to everyone, but you get to go in first in the next round of questioning. How about that? All right, Team Intelligence, thank you so much. We appreciate your presentation and hard work, really interesting. Thank you. And up next, we have Team Gasp. Team Gasp, are you ready?
Could the other team stop screen sharing?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So I'm just going to share my screen.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, everyone can see this, right? Okay.
Okay, perfect. So hello, everyone. First and foremost, just want to thank all of you guys for being here and joining us while we explain our product. And that brings me to our team. We are Team Gasp, and we're here with the prompt of reimagining virtual conferences with our product Engage, a revolutionary immersion AI-based teleconferencing tool. A quick introduction to our team. My name is Gayatri, and I am a rising junior in college.
I'm Anthony, and I'm a rising freshman in college.
I'm Medina, and I'm a rising senior in high school.
And I'm Samiha, and I'm a rising sophomore in college.
And shout out to our amazing mentor, Parker Riley, who made this all possible for us. And so what you're going to see on this next slide, I want everyone to take a really good look at this image. With a glance, can you tell if everyone here is engaged? Now, if you got that, like, really good job, but now take a look at this image. Now, can you tell if everyone's engaged? And how about if you were the presenter and you were sharing your screen? So we ran a few practices where we dealt with this. So Samiha, do you remember seeing anything?
I couldn't see very much, no.
Exactly. And so this is what brings us to our problem. I'm sure we all can agree that today, virtual conferencing and these teleconferencing tools are more important than ever before. And all these displays and interfaces, they create this lack of emotional connection between the presenter and the attendees, whether they're students at school or they're at some tech conference. And this can be really bad for them understanding the material of that presentation.
So we recognized this problem as one that we, as people who have both presented and been audience members, have encountered. But we wanted to understand, was it common across the board? To find out, we went through the design process according to Google's design sprint methodology. We conducted 13 interviews with business professionals, students, and professors. We listed their pain points. We phrased their problems in the form of how might we questions to figure out our focus. And then we whittled all of that information down into 3 end user personas and 3 main pain points. So these user personas, which were all generated based on the content we collected during our interviews, So these user personas, they were created because they represented large subsets, including both presenters and attendees of the video conferencing population, whether that's in the context of education, larger conferences like the Emotion AI Summit, or business meetings. So we have a proficient presenter who's someone who's very skilled at presenting in person, but struggles with gauging engagement over Zoom. A privacy pro, or someone who's super focused on privacy and really worries about the implications of keeping their camera on. For example, one of our interviewees specifically said that she keeps her camera off in larger lecture classes because she doesn't want someone she doesn't know pinning her video and just watching her instead of the class. Our third user was someone who's unengaged and doesn't participate because they know that the presenter can't see them and that they just don't have that connection there. So we found that our target users experienced these 3 common pain points. First one is that attendees tend to keep their cameras off, often for privacy reasons, which, as you saw earlier in Gayatri's introduction, makes it really impossible to read the crowd. Additionally, even if cameras are on, as you saw earlier as well, it's exceedingly difficult for presenters to understand the emotional engagement of their audience. And lastly, emotional analysis tools exist, but they don't really integrate into the world of video conferencing, and especially in a seamless way.
Our solution, Engage, is a platform that combines emotional AI with video conferencing to provide attendees and hosts with a gauge of the emotional state of the audience through the metrics, confusion, engagement, and attention. Engage values privacy and conveys avatar animations to the hosts rather than video streams. The 3 core functionalities of the product are the Emotive Avatars, Aggregated Visualization, and integration into the experience.
So this is the first core functionality, the first tool, which is the Emotive Avatar. So basically, as you can see, they're animated faces that change in real time based on camera streams from the audience members. So the facial features like the eyes, the brows, and the nose of the avatar change based on the users, and that's detected by the Affectiva's facial SDK. It's able to capture really small movements of the face like blinking, which makes the avatar seem more lifelike and helps the presenter be more connected with the audience. Also, the background changes color based on the emotion that the face is showing right now. For example, blue for sad, yellow for happy. And this really helps the presenter gauge the general emotion of the audience. So these emotive avatars are a replacement of actually sharing camera streams in video conferences. With so many people worried about embarrassing incidents happening on camera, wanting to protect their privacy, these avatars eliminate the need for sharing an actual camera stream. They create a more fun experience for everyone, and they provide an amazing way for presenters to judge the emotional state of the audience. So for example, the presenter could just glance at this and they would have a really clear idea of how the audience is feeling at a certain moment in time.
Similarly, we use these gauges that you can see on the screen as another type of aggregate visualization that the presenter can use to get a read on the state of the attendees. Now, we decided to go with gauges rather than charts or numbers because we feel like these are an easy to read metric. So at a quick glance, the presenter can understand what the levels are. So there are 3 specific gauges and metrics that we focused on. So they are attention, confusion, and engagement. So the attention and engagement metrics were included in Affectiva's SDK, but we researched and formulated our own metric for confusion. And this involved using the facial landmarks such as brow furrowing or lip pursing, jaw dropping, and negative valence emotions. Also, as you can see on the bottom, the brightness does increase and decrease depending on the levels. So take confusion for an example. If the confusion levels are low, we wouldn't want to distract the presenter from their presentation. So it's slightly faded. But when the confusion levels are alarmingly high, then it's brighter to alert the presenter that they might need to clarify or slow down their presentation. And lastly, we did consider latency. So something like confusion is very in the moment. So if I'm confused right now, I would want it to operate on that second. But something like attention and engagement are more over time. So we included the averages of the past 3 to 5 seconds while we calculated those scores.
So the last part of the core functionality that we'd mentioned earlier is integrating into the experience of video conferencing and trying to do so seamlessly. So initially, we thought that the best way to go about this would be integrating with a specific platform. And we spent a lot of time trying to integrate with the Zoom Web SDK, but we quickly realized that this SDK doesn't scale well on calls that include more than 2 individuals. So if you're looking for a larger meeting like the Emotion AI Summit or larger lectures, that's just not going to work as well. So we created a parallel product that seamlessly works with the video conferencing experience. We created a website because web technology is super accessible and anyone who's using Wi-Fi and therefore, or even video conferencing should be able to log on. So how does this work? We created 2 user-facing displays and a server to connect them. So there's an individual or client view. So when you get to this screen, it'll display information about you. What emotions are you displaying? And what, I guess, facial landmarks are moving? What does your avatar look like? We also included a dashboard, which includes an aggregation of all of the avatars and averages emotion values from users on the gauges, so that there's not only like an individualized view, but an aggregate view on a dashboard. To facilitate the communication between the client and dashboard views, we also made a server so that you can see it in real time. So maybe let's take a look at the demo now. So you might have thought that that was just your average Google Slides presentation, but fun fact, it's embedded in our website. So on the left, you'll see that Anthony is displaying our client page. And just for context, the home page that you just saw, that's just to provide information to individuals about what's going on. So on the left is a client view here. And so as you can see, the avatar is moving around based on Anthony's movements. And the different gauges at the bottom are tracking his attention, his confusion, and his engagement. Now on the right, you'll see a dashboard view. Do you see how there are 3 people on there? That's me and 2 other members of GASP. So all of our information is being, basically what happens is on the client side, or like on the left, it takes all of that information that it's pulling directly from your webcam with the Emotion AI SDK, and then sending it up to the server anonymously. And on the right, it's showing the average values of attention, confusion, and engagement of people who are currently using the client, and it displays our avatars there too.
Now regarding competitor research. I could take you through each sub, but don't worry, we won't. We've summarized our research into a graphic on the next slide. Most of Engage's competitors do not have the integration of Emotion AI, seen in the lower right quadrant, and those that do are not suited for multiple users, except for Smirky, which mimics one-to-one FaceTime with the integration of AI. But what sets us apart? No other platforms integrate Emotion AI for numerous users, and Engage is specifically geared towards attendees and presenters. We have created different dashboards, aggregated and individual, while respecting user privacy through the use of emotive avatars. The market for video conferencing is also growing. With a record of 62 million downloads, it was worth $14 billion in 2019 and is anticipated to grow at over 19% over the next 6 years. With the ongoing pandemic, the demand has also drastically increased.
So some future plans. This is what like our Go interface would look like, fully integrated with Zoom. To do that, we would have to work closely with a teleconferencing company, but we already have all of the things that we've created. So if we could just work with them, it wouldn't be too hard to add these to their platform. And then some other things that I think that our product can accomplish in the future, we would like to create a more comprehensive confusion metric, as confusion is super important to presenters. We would like to have a more diverse set of avatars so that attendees can choose what type of avatar they want to be represented by. And lastly, we think that we could create a post-meeting feedback report based off of the data of emotions collected during the meeting.
When you invest in Engage, you invest in our team. As a team, we have 12 years of computer science experience and have completed 5 previous projects with human-centered design, have experience in education, and have experience as both attendees and presenters. But our team doesn't just include us 4. We would like to thank everyone who assisted us with our project, but especially Parker Riley, who has been our mentor throughout the development of this project. Thank you so much for listening to us, and we hope you found this engaging. Please feel free to ask us any questions.
Wonderful, thank you. And yes, this was very engaging. Thank you very much. Excellent presentation, excellent work. And I'm going to hand it over to Matt for the first question.
All right. Great. I actually have some questions about how you define confusion. So you went through and you built a custom kind of, I don't know how, you basically built it on our existing outputs. What did you use for the existing outputs? And where did you pull up supporting information to kind of build these theories? How did you come up with it?
Yeah, okay, so for the confusion metric, the first thing we did obviously was research what type of facial expressions people make when they're confused. And so a couple things that off the bat that we saw pop up everywhere is things like brow furrowing, and then maybe lip pursing, or even if they're like their jaws are slightly dropped, and just generally some sort of emotion or face with negative valence emotions. And so what we try to do is that Affectiva's SDK, it does include these facial landmarks and the score for each of them. So we use those scores and we kind of weighted them to see which ones are more important. And so those we might multiply by some constant, and then the ones that are perhaps less important or just might not be entirely just confusion. So we wanted to make sure it doesn't overlap on other things. We kind of weighted them down. So we would probably multiply those by 0.2 or something. And so at the end, what we did was we added up all these scores and we tried to display that sort of confusion metric when their faces kind of landed in those spots.
And just
I would just,
sorry.
I would just like to add, it's definitely not a perfect metric. We just threw it together because we were more focused on the concept of it. I don't think there's a lot of data sets out there that exist with faces of confusion. So to train that, we would train a model for detecting confusion. We would need to find those data sets.
And additionally, we didn't just use like what we saw like in our cameras and stuff. We also read a fair number of papers on what facial action units are used, like, or have been proven to correlate with confusion as well.
Excellent, thank you. Matt, anything else from you, or I'll bounce it over to Alex? All right, Alex, any questions from you?
I think generally speaking, your presentation is very, very clear. Just sort of interested, I guess, a little bit on your next steps and your future next steps that you spoke about, your plans for the future. If you were to pick sort of one area to focus on in terms of commercial opportunity, what do you feel would be the main area or the primary area to focus on?
Well, obviously, I think it would be super important to try to get it fully integrated with the teleconferencing platform. Like right now, as the peers, it's just like we have the row of faces and we have the gauges, but it's not like in the app as you can see here. So that would be really cool. And also, like, I think we should just have like a more diverse set of avatars. That's not too hard to do. Like, we want to make sure everyone feels included. So.
Thank you.
Also related to the avatars, one thing that we did keep in mind about like just having a set version of them instead of like generating one based off of the way you look was we wanted to also protect privacy in that respect. Like on that screen, like the dashboard, you can't tell who's who, and that's part of the appeal, I think.
Excellent. Excellent. So clarify a little bit more for me who you're exactly going to be selling your product to. Who's your client?
We talked a lot too, like, so when we were doing our user research, we talked to like people all over the spectrum. And like, I think we definitely, like, all of us have experience with like Zoom University or like some other equivalent. So we, like, all of us, at least personally, definitely, and like with our discussions with educators and stuff, we definitely saw that there's a lot of, like, it's very applicable in that specific area, but these problems of like the lack of emotional engagement and things like that, they can very easily be generalized to even like the business world based on what we talked about as well.
Yeah, so go ahead, Anthony.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so basically anybody who has to present over video conference platforms a lot. So like I talked to like business professionals and I talked to teachers. They all had issues with like people not having their cameras on and like not being able to judge engagement. So I think that our product would be perfect just for people who present over video conferencing platforms.
So you're envisioning selling this more or less directly to people like us here, rather than selling it to a conferencing platform or to a Zoom who would integrate it?
Not necessarily. I feel like we could sell it in both ways, depending. I think both markets are a feasible plan of action for this product. But in terms of Zoom, if we're taking Zoom by itself, its market is more towards educators, I feel. And then there's Google Meet and meetings and Cisco WebEx, and those are more for like tech conferences and business meetings. So I think making sure that we sell it to all these different types of people in business, in education, just speakers, keynote speakers. I think we just want to make sure it's a tool that has that wide reach of integration, and its focus is on these groups where multiple people are on the camera.
Got it, thank you. And you mentioned integration, right? Since this is web-based, do you believe it easily integrates with any type of conferencing platform, or could there be limitations in how you access data from other platforms that you need for your solution?
Hi, just a warning, the 20-minute period for this presentation is up.
Okay, then we'll leave it at that. We want to be fair to everyone. Thank you very much, GASP team, with your engaging presentation, I should say. Very much appreciate all your hard work. Thank you. And now up next, our last team, For Vision. For Vision, are you ready? Yes. All right, excellent. Yes, we hand the floor to you. Over to you.
Awesome. Okay. So, hi, we're Team 4 Vision. My name is Anika Puri, and I am a rising junior at Horace Greeley High School. Abdulrahman is a senior at STEM October High School. Jordan is a neuroscience major at Dartmouth College with an interest in business strategy. And Wali is a biomedical engineering major at Johns Hopkins. And special shout out to our amazing mentor, Momin. So, as you all know, millions of students all around the country and world have been forced to learn remotely from their homes instead of engaging with their classmates and teachers in person. In current virtual learning environments, educators can't gauge students' attention, confusion, and engagement levels. This lack of feedback leads the presenters to be forced to assume that their audience is paying attention and understanding the information being shown, when this might not actually be the case. As a student myself, I've encountered several awkward moments where all the students are looking down at their phones while the teacher is continuing to teach the topic, even though less than 50% of the class was engaged. The addition of valuable metrics would be incredibly beneficial to the presenter, and this is where our solution comes in. Our solution is a real-time video conferencing plugin that provides educators with real-time emotion and engagement metrics, enabling the presenter to customize their presentation accordingly. We include a variety of features, such as student feedback, a detailed report of the metrics following the meeting, and several others. Each of the images demonstrate two perspectives of our solution, the student and the teacher, both of which run in real time with Zoom SDK. In addition, based off feedback received from a live interview with professors, we've also included a feature allowing for the customization of metrics in greater detail based on the class type and the environment. We'll discuss and show some of the metrics in greater detail later on in our presentation and demo. So speaking of the demo, next we'll be showing you a demo of our solution.
Okay, so right here, the demo of our project is actually a little complex and might feel a little overwhelming, so I'm going to carefully walk you through it. What you're going to see is a seamless integration of Zoom and Effectiva's SDK. We got it to work after working around the problem of getting Zoom and Effectiva to access the same camera stream. Yeah, so. Okay, so as you can see, it starts with the student side of the project. Starts with students getting into the call, which will simultaneously start Effectiva's SDK. Okay, so say the professor is showing the students kind of a confusing or hard topic. Students would typically show visible confusion, as you can see with the brow furrowing, for example. When the confusion is cleared up, but the professor starts asking questions, the students will probably start looking away or losing attention. And then a cute picture is shown, and student gets somehow more engaged. So as it all happens, it shows a real-time bar graph, as you can see at the right bottom, for the instructor, reflecting the emotions of a fraction of his students by numbers. Now, shifting back to the student side of things, that is what it pretty much looks like. As you can see, when a student furrows his brow or shows confusion, the confusion's metrics value increases. The opposite happens when a person looks away, the attention metrics value decreases. And when a student appears to be sleeping, it displays a pop-up that asks him if he's feeling sleepy. Just a rhetorical question to keep him focused. And finally, engagement. When triggered by nodding, brow raising, and smiles, the metrics value increases.
So,
yeah,
so who is the end user? It's educators. This includes professors, teachers, and even virtual conference presenters, likely for smaller workshops. The end user we have designed informs us to create a product that is user-friendly and beneficial to those who genuinely want to track student engagement. They want to create lectures that are the most informative and the most valuable for their students. They want to keep their students attentive and focused and on track while they're giving them their information. The product is intended to be sold to larger institutions because we recognize that they have the most power when it comes to formally integrating this technology into teacher and professor curriculums. Additionally, oftentimes these administrators have often been educators at one point, so they can likely empathize with this pain point. Also, it's important to note that when we did conduct our survey, we identified a pain point on the student side as well. However, we thought our solution would be most effective for these teachers and educators. So next, we did market research. We started with a live interview of our persona, as well as the survey results and the numbers pictured here. So 31% of our sample found engagement and or attention to be one of the biggest problems with Zoom and virtual learning. 60% of this sample have indicated that the biggest difference between in-person and virtual learning is the lack of engagement and attention. So this is where we had our aha moment. People miss personal engagement. They miss gauging audience attentiveness, something you can't get through a virtual interaction, or maybe you can. So is our product really essential? Our results prove that it is. When prompted with the question, how often have you found yourself disengaged or not paying attention during a video call? Our survey participants, the majority of our survey participants answered sometimes to often. Who would want to lecture a class in which 70% of the class is distracted with their surroundings, on their phone, maybe on a different tab, or maybe even watching a movie. We've all done it before. And the worst part, you wouldn't even know that your students aren't paying attention to the topics that are going to be put on the exam. Next, we wanted to look at the market size for video conferencing. This image gives insight about this market and how it's really only projected to grow in the future. Actually, in fact, the predicted growth by 2026 appears more than double the 2018 market size. This shows that the market is extremely valuable and a very exciting market to be entering right now. We did some further analysis as well of this same market to familiarize ourselves with the landscape. The market shows us why differentiating our product is so important and essentially why we chose the features that we did. The high threat of new entry for this market is indicated by the idea that the software is replicable and the innovation of the technology is unlimited, but this is a really good thing. Additionally, the high bargaining power of buyers reveals that consumers do have choice and they do have flexibility, which is more of a reason why we had to make our product the best, and we did. Finally, for high competitive rivalry, I will address in the next slide. So, further analysis of the competitive landscape for web conferencing platforms revealed these findings. We looked at other conferencing platform features such as ability to enhance audience engagement or track engagement, as well as other technical metrics. The differentiating features of our 4Vision product are indicated on the axes shown. This includes real-time metrics, so the professor is able to physically see how the students are reacting to the presentation, change course accordingly, and make the presentation better. Additionally, this idea of customization, which we found was a really important feature through our live interview, is essential to making our product different from the other market competitors.
Awesome. So next, I'm gonna touch up on some of the competitive advantages of our product. Specifically, there are two advantages that stem from our product's ability to run and analyze emotions locally on the student side of the computers, as you saw in the demo. So firstly, this doesn't limit us to a maximum number of faces that we can analyze. This cap, this maximum number, would otherwise be there if we analyze the Zoom video stream on the educator's side. So as the participants increase, the icons get smaller and it becomes difficult to analyze the emotions and to detect the faces. Secondly, analyzing locally also limits the privacy concern because when you run the web app locally on the student side, the information is collected on the student side, and otherwise it could have been that the data is all available to the educator. So moving on to the metrics. We found that while it's easy to downplay the metrics, to kind of think that we're just going to provide the educator with whatever feedback, it's actually crucial and it's really vital for the educators to be able to lead effective sessions. And this was informed by our research. So as you can see here, based on a teacher's use of affect, and more specifically, within as little as 6 seconds of the teacher's first interactions with the student, researchers could predict that teacher's effectiveness and also the student academic performance. And so clearly we knew that picking which metrics we provide the educators with is super important because we couldn't just bombard them with all sorts of information. And we decided to pick the metrics based on two factors. The first of which is the popularity of these metrics in the research and in the literature, specifically pertaining to effective computing within the virtual learning environment. And secondly, the robustness of these metrics. So how accurate are they? How effective are they? And immediately confusion checked both of these boxes off. And when we asked ourselves, okay, is confusion important to track? Why track confusion? We realized that, as you can imagine, it's important for teachers and educators to be able to track this metric so that when it's high, they can pause, provide clarity about a certain topic, or ask questions. Whereas when it's low, they can accelerate the learning rate. So as far as how we were able to compute on this metric and provide it, we found that there are 3 action units. There's action units 4, 7, and 12 that correlate to confusion. And more prominently are the first 2 ones, the brow furrow and the tightening of the eyelids. So we're able to combine these metrics and to provide the confusion. So next up is attention, the second out of the 3 metrics that we provide. Attention is obviously important, as you can imagine, for an educator to be able to track. And it's also currently tracked by the Affectiva SDK. So we thought of different ways we could build upon this. And what we realized is that we could measure the distance between the feature points around the eyes and incorporate an eye closure detector. And so we ended up incorporating this eye closure detection, and we realized that when the student is drowsy or getting sleepy, we can provide them with a notification. And so this kind of opened a discussion about how do we want to provide this notification. And we realized that there's a very key point here, punishment versus encouragement. We don't want to punish the lack of attention, but rather encourage the attention and encourage the students to be energized and engaged. So by asking them a simple question, are they getting sleepy, and giving them these two options, they can either signal okay and signal that they got the message, they're going to energize themselves, do whatever it needs to make sure that they're engaged, or cancel, which indicates to the system that this is a false positive. Maybe they were just jotting down some notes and they actually were being attentive. And so this leaves the door open for the future for adaptive learning. We hope to be able to kind of teach the system how to respond to these false positives by avoiding these situations in the future. And so the third and last metric that we track is engagement. What's important to note here is that engagement is an aggregation of other affective states, and this kind of separates it and distinguishes it from attention and understanding. For example, when confusion raises, engagement raises as well. And this is intuitive because the students would be interacting actively with the material. When researching about engagement, we found that there are valence and arousal combinations that could help us in the future. So valence can either be positive or negative, as well as arousal, and that kind of yields 4 possible combinations. And we can use those combinations to strengthen our conclusions, to strengthen and make the metrics that were previously shown, attention, engagement, and confusion, more accurate, as well as introduce some of the other metrics, some future metrics, which leads us into what's next. So of these future metrics, we hope to incorporate boredom, which has historically been difficult to differentiate between a normal resting state because of the lack of action unit correlations. And so the valence and arousal combinations could help us implement that feature. We also hope to implement a feature where the educator can toggle between the feedback that he or she receives. And in this way, they can kind of tailor the feedback they receive based on their needs, their preferences, and also the class type and environment. And of course, we hope to test our prototype. We hope to let users experience this and find out what they really want, find out what they really need, and analyze that feedback to adapt our solution based on that feedback accordingly. Finally, we hope to look for potential investors because ultimately the goal is to bring our idea to reality and bring our product to the market. And so with that, we want to give a special thanks to Mutmin, our amazing mentor who guided us throughout the way and always helped us with everything, going the extra mile, as well as everybody else that's mentioned here for making EMPath 2020 a possibility. And with that, we can enter the Q&A.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Excellent work, excellent presentation for Vision. Well done. Alex, would you perhaps like to go first with a question?
Yes, I'm really interested in your thoughts around future measures and your reference on boredom, I guess, specifically. Could you just, I guess, share a little bit more around what measures you might have considered and rejected? And then the second part, I guess, to that question is, which measure or measures do you think would bring most value to this specific use case? And why do you think that's the case?
Yeah, so I think that when we were looking at different metrics, we were trying to prioritize them, again, based on the popularity and the robustness of these metrics. And so we thought that boredom might kind of fall in that kind of second tier category. And additionally, it is harder to incorporate, mainly because of the lack of action units. Like some people kind of have resting states that are kind of just very blank, which is natural, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're bored. And so differentiating between those two has been historically hard because of the lack of action unit correlations. But I think with the valence and arousal combinations, that might be something that we can look further into to hopefully incorporate that metric and provide that value to the educators.
Excellent. Thank you. Matt, over to you next.
I don't think I have one this time. Thank you very much.
All righty, then I have a question. On confusion, how did you determine which AUs were markers or indicators of confusion? What was that based on?
So I can start, and then maybe if somebody else has something to add, they can join in. So I think mainly based on the literature. So we did a lot of research. We looked into different papers within affective computing, and specifically in the context of virtual learning, because that's really our sphere, our environment. And we found that these three metrics, these three action units, I think 7, 12, and 24, were constantly mentioned in multiple different papers. And more prominently, the brow furrowing and the tightening of the eyelids. And so we were able to combine those metrics, or to combine those action units rather, and provide that metric.
Excellent, excellent. There's one other question I have. Have you looked at some of the educational platforms, for example, a 2U or a Khan Academy? And do you think that those educational platforms could be good partners for you?
So we have not specifically looked at those specific platforms. However, I do believe that they could definitely be good partners because they already have the intense educational aspect along with our plugin. I think it would be a really great pairing.
Okay, excellent. So you envision that those could potentially be clients as well, where you would sell your plugin to them, and you would integrate that into their platforms.
Right.
Excellent, fantastic. Thank you. Alex, any more questions on your end? Or Matt?
Not from me. Very clear. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. I have one last question if we have time. And I wanted to ask the other teams as well, but not a lot of time for that. I'm just interested in hearing, what did you think was the most difficult aspect of this project and of this Makethon for your team? And if you guys give different answers, that's totally fine, because I know you all worked on different aspects. I'm just interested in hearing, like, when you work on a project like this, what are some of the things that are really difficult to figure out?
So I can start, I guess. So I think from, I guess, at least a technical standpoint, figuring out how to integrate the two SDKs was a bit tricky, and kind of getting them to display correctly, that took definitely a lot of time. And the other thing is getting the Zoom SDK to run at the same time as Effectiva's SDK, because they have to essentially access the same video stream. And kind of not interfere. So we had to work around that, and we were able to incorporate some software to kind of work around that and to allow both of the SDKs to access the same camera stream. So I think from a technical standpoint, that was definitely the trickiest thing.
I also think, kind of like adding on to that, the thing, it's like you have these two sides to the thing. You have a teacher side to it and you have a student side to it. And I think one of the main things we wanted to emphasize was that we not only want our solution to be beneficial for educators, we also want that aspect of the feature we mentioned in the beginning of like student feedback, and something we also showed in the demo of like the "Are you sleepy?" to the student, because we don't want to distract the student either, but we wanted our solution to be beneficial for both the teacher, the educator, and the student as well. So yeah.
Excellent. That's very helpful. Great answer. Thank you. Unless there's any other questions, I think I see Alex pop up. Alex, are we out of time?
Yep, just out.
All right, excellent. Thank you to all the teams for doing such an outstanding job on your projects and presenting up to us. Super interesting, super fun. Loved it all. Now we judges go on to the very difficult task of doing our final scoring. Ashleen, do we judges stay on this line and then everyone else drops, or remind me again of the flow? And is Ashleen still here? All right, well, I think for the EMPath participants, the project teams, I think you guys actually are going into your lunch break now, or maybe Ashleen and Tanya have something else lined up for you. So how about we dismiss you all? Look at the chat. Rana says, great job, everyone. I will let you all drop, and I suggest that Alex, Matt, and I stay here for our final deliberation. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you this afternoon. Matt and Alex will stay here. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And Jing Lee needs to leave. There we go. Cecile will dismiss as well. And Rana, you're not allowed to stay because you're not allowed to influence us. Because I know you will. Bye-bye. I'm going to remove Rana. That's so fun. I've never removed her from a meeting before. Hold on. Remove. Do you want to remove Rana Okuyubi? Yes. Let me just do it. Okay, she goes. No, I know she has an opinion and I don't want her influencing us. That wouldn't be fair to the other teams. All right, hold on. I just need to submit my final form here. Let me make sure I've filled out everything. Submit. So let me also just quickly look at the calendar here. You know what, guys? I just need a super quick bio break. Give me a minute. I'll be right back.
Of course. Yep, no worries.
I'll be right back.
Of course, Stephen is peppering me with eye tracking integration questions.
Stephen Schaefer.
Oh, Christ.
Don't say anything you regret because we're being recorded. Still.
Oh, that's great.
So just so you know.
Never mind.
If you're going to start swearing about our main client.
No. If anything,
no, I know you would. I'm only kidding.
If anything, and I'm not saying this because we're recording, but I'll suck up anyway. Stephen is the one person in the entire world I feel the most sympathetic for because he and I are often in the same boat.
Yeah. It's a job where there's loads of, well, I'm obviously talking to the Kantar side, not your job, but he's got loads of people sort of feeding in and raising challenges all the time. And it's that, constant prioritization and juggling of that.
In the meantime, recording, you get to see my wife made some very interesting cookies that she delivered in the middle of the last talk. And I was like, I can't touch those. It would be
nice. Yeah. I had my Theo bang it. Yeah, I had Theo banging on the door on my end. So I'm jealous. Didn't have cookies. I had a toddler screaming, Daddy. So, yeah. Those guys are all good though. Like, honestly, the quality, the sort of the confidence, the quality of thinking, just speaking generally, I was massively impressed when the first one started. I was like, wow, these, very encouraging.
There's certainly awareness of their audience trying to pitch a solution for the AI summit.
And I love the confusion as well. The designing classifiers. But anyway.
I will say.
Hold on. I think we might actually have to jump over to another deliberation line. Hold on. Let me. Ashleen is pinging me.
Okay. Oh yeah, there is another invite. There is a separate invite. Yeah.
Okay, we are coming. All right, let's jump over there. All right, I agree with you. Like just seeing how young some of them are. Wow, very.